Hi, everybody. Thanks for checking in. I've got an update on your storm for tomorrow into Tuesday. Just wanted to give you an update as we have another chance at some wintry weather, and this is early in the season. This storm has, much like the last storm, uh, kind of been all over the place with the models in the last week in terms of whether we would get appreciable snow or all rain. It looks like this one's going to settle down. It's very similar to the last setup of storm, except this one's got a little bit more moisture with it than the last storm did. So we got about a third of an inch of precipitation. Now some of that came in the form of snow, but out of the last storm, this storm, it's more like 2/3 to 3/4 of an inch of precipitation, which had meant if we had all snow, we would have been looking in some places north of us. We'll get mostly snow. We're looking at relatively significant snowstorm for this time of year. We're not looking at that as we're not going to get most of our precip in the form of snow. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the maps. Here is our satellite feed, and you can see our storm actually really just starting to actually this piece of energy here is starting to feed across the Rockies. It's going to dive, not quite that steeply. My drawing isn't great, but it's going to dive across the northern tier of the United States. It's going to pick up a little moisture. As you can see, we got a pretty good feed of moisture down here across the southwest and a little bit more energy. They're going to come together and kind of shoot across the country. And then the storm's really going to, it's kind of going to come across as a front, and then a storm's going to develop along the front and then kind of head up the East Coast in that general direction. So let me unpack. That was a lot of words. Let me unpack what I meant by that for you a little bit. Actually, I think it would be easier to do that by looking at a different map here. One way to think about what this is doing, here's your upper level trough, which we've been sitting under. You know that. Whoops, that yellow color is not good. But we've been sitting underneath it here in the eastern part of the United States as you can tell that because it's been cold, really cold after the last storm moved through. And you can see that the flow, though, generally the wind is basically what we would call zonal, which means it's pretty much moving west to east, slightly kind of northwest to southeast across the United States, across the northern tier of the United States. And what's happening here is little pieces. This is like the big upper level low pressure system, the upper level dip in the jet stream, the trough. And around that trough is rotating pieces of energy. And this piece way out here over British Columbia is starting to sweep through. And as that piece sweeps across the country, it's going to kind of pivot. And it's essentially going to drag a front with it. Across the country. It's going to come across like this, and then it's going to eventually kind of set itself up across the East Coast, like I said before. And then a piece of low pressure, as it starts to get into a moisture-rich environment as it approaches the Atlantic coast, is going to ride up the front and give us a little enhanced precipitation. And that's going to lead to our storm. It's not going to be a dramatically strong storm. It's actually not going to really wrap up, much like our last storm, which was not real strong when it moved through here, although it became a strong storm over the North Atlantic. Same kind of thing for this. The storm doesn't actually get strong until it starts to kind of head off the coast. It'll be a developing storm as it comes by us. But like I said, it'll have more moisture because we've got a little bit more of a tap of moisture for some Pacific moisture in the southwest, and this will tap some Gulf moisture a little bit more than the last storm, although again, still not a real huge precipitation maker. Let me show you the temperatures, and we'll explain why we're going to have similar issues. Let me get rid of all my squiggles there. Why we're going to have similar issues to what we had with the last storm. We're still in the early November, and there's not a lot of cold air, dramatic cold air in place at all. You do have some pretty cold air here over Canada that has started to, my goodness, I'm supposed to be hitting that button so that I can draw. Here we go. Nope, I guess it's not going to let me do it. Okay, we're supposed to be hitting, sorry about that. You can see that there's some cold air moving in across the Dakotas and across Montana, and then you've got a pretty good clash in temperatures between where you've got, single numbers and teens, and then you've got 50s and 60s even into Oklahoma and Kansas. So you got a pretty good temperature squeeze there, and the front is kind of going to drape itself across that area. And what's going to happen is, that's why that went away. There we go. What's going to happen is this boundary layer is going to kind of reset itself up across the East Coast. And as the storm heads up the East Coast, we're going to be basically right on the line of the boundary layer. There's going to be snow to the north of the boundary, rain to the south, obviously, And we're going to be kind of in the middle, and we're going to get a little bit of both rain and snow and some sleet mixed in there. It's going to be kind of a sloppy mess. So that does mean for places pretty well north and west of that center, kind of across northern New York, northern Vermont, northern New Hampshire into northwest Maine, they're going to get a significant snowstorm. Up to 10 inches of snow would not be surprising at all in places north of let's say Burlington, especially as you get up into the hills a little bit there. Not so much in the Champlain Valley, but in other places they're getting up to 10 inches of snow. But here we're not really going to change. We're going to kind of be a mess, and so what's going to happen is we're going to start as a little bit of snow as the warm front kind of moves through, and then as the storm kind of pivots on top of us, or the front kind of pivots on top of us, the warm front's going to kind of become stationary right over the top of us, and then slowly push east as the storm starts to draw away, much like last time. So we'll start as a little bit of snow. That'll quickly change to some sleet and potentially little freezing rain. Probably not much freezing rain. The ground's way too warm for freezing rain. But so some sleet, and then eventually that'll change to just kind of some drizzle. Precipitation will actually probably cut off, so it starts tomorrow late morning. I wouldn't expect too much snow accumulation. We might get a quick dusting of snow, and the roads could very briefly get a little slippery, although the roads are going to be, it's early in the year, the roads are still pretty warm, so I don't think we'll have a lot of problems even then. By tomorrow afternoon into early evening, that changes to light drizzle or maybe a little bit of sleet and rain mixed together. And then slowly we'll transition back towards snow towards daybreak on Tuesday. I think much similar to the last storm, what often happens on these storms is as the snow and the cold air kind of seeps south, it gets caught in the mountains, and it takes us longer to transition than the models think. The models right now, a lot of the models would want to transition us pretty quickly back to snow and give us 3 or 4 inches of snow. I think that's way overdoing it. I think we're looking at a similar amount of snow to last time, where it's a dusting to a coating, and then we may get another dusting as the kind of moist northwest flow picks up again on the through Tuesday afternoon, even, where we'll see some snow showers that could kind of whiten up the ground again. It is possible Tuesday morning there'd be enough that it would come down. It'll come down a little heavier than it did last time, that we could get just enough to make the roads a little bit slippery on Tuesday morning. I don't think it'll cause big problems. I don't think, I think schools will basically be on, at least certainly south of Rutland. It's really only a problem in northern Vermont for kind of the heavier snow. But it is, and elevation I don't think will play a huge role in this storm either. Some of that is coming from the last storm where elevation didn't play a huge role. Certainly if you go up in elevation, you will get a little bit more snow, but the way that that took so long for the cold air to move over the mountains last time is going to be a very similar setup this time. And there's just not quite enough cold air. We got too many of these 60s and 70s degree temperatures down here over the southeast United States to have too many of these 60s and 70s to create, to be able to kind of move that cold air in real quick. With that being said, after this, we'll get an even colder shot of air than the one we just saw yesterday. Whereas we'll probably have some lows in the single digits on a Wednesday morning. So just be aware of that. It'll feel midwinter cold for a couple days, and then we do start to moderate, and actually moderate quite a bit by the end of next week into next weekend and beyond. It looks like we're going to be in for a little bit more of a warmer stretch, at least relatively warm for November. All right, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments section, and if there's any big changes or as things change tomorrow, I'll either do a text update or potentially another live update as well. Have a good day, and good luck getting any of those last-minute chores you got done to do.